The story of Patachara. From tragedy to liberation. She was the daughter of a wealthy merchant in the city of Savatthi. Her father's fortune was worth 400 million gold coins, and she was a wonderful person. When Patachara turned 16, her parents assigned her to live in a 7-story mansion. She was kept securely on the top floor, constantly surrounded by guards. Despite all these precautions, she became involved in a secret affair with one of her servants. At that time, her parents had already promised her marriage to a young man of equal social standing, and they eventually set a wedding date. As the date drew near, she told her servant, "My parents told me they intend to marry me off to a certain nobleman. You know very well that once I become someone else's wife, even if you bring me gifts, you'll never be allowed to come near me. So if you truly love me, don't waste another moment. Find a way to take me away from here." He replied, "Very well, my dear. Tomorrow at dawn, I'll be waiting at the city gate. Do whatever you must to escape and meet me there." The next day, he went to the agreed-upon spot to wait. Patachara woke up early, dressed in ragged clothes, tangled her hair, and smeared red powder all over her body to appear unkempt. She grabbed a water jar and, together with her female attendants, pretended to be going out to fetch water. Escaping from her confinement, she reached the rendezvous point and met her lover. They fled far away and settled in a small village. The husband farmed the land and gathered firewood in the forest, while Patachara fetched water, pounded rice, cooked, and managed the household. Thus, she was already reaping the karmic consequences of her past misdeeds even in this very life. Eventually, she became pregnant. As her due date approached, she said to her husband, "There's no one here to help me, but no matter what, a parent's heart always holds love for their child. Please take me back to my parents so I can give birth with their care." But her husband refused, saying, "My dear, what are you saying? If your parents saw me, they'd surely torment me in every possible way. It's not reasonable for you to ask me to take you back." She begged many times, but each time he refused. One day, when her husband had gone into the forest, she went to a neighbor's house and said, "If my husband comes back and asks where I went, please tell him I've returned to my parents." She locked the house and left. When the husband returned and couldn't find her, he asked the neighbors and learned what had happened. "I must go after her and bring her back," he thought, and set off. He eventually caught up with her and pleaded for her to return. But no matter how hard he tried, she refused. As they journeyed onward, her labor pains began to intensify. She said to her husband, "My husband, the pains have started." She crawled into a thicket, lay down on the ground, and, in great agony, gave birth to a son. She thought, "I've already done what I set out to give birth at my parents' home. That's over now." So she returned with her husband, and they resumed their life together. Sometime later, she became pregnant again. As before, she requested to return to her parents, and again her husband refused. So she set off carrying her older child, just as before. Her husband chased after her, caught up with her, and pleaded with her to return. Again, she refused. As they continued, an untimely storm struck. The sky flashed with lightning, thunder tore through the sky, and heavy rain poured down. At that moment, her labor pains began again. She said, "Husband, I can't bear it any longer. The pains have started. Please find me shelter from the rain." Her husband took an axe and began searching for materials to build shelter. He found a mound with a bush growing on it and began chopping it down. Just as he started, a venomous snake slithered out of the mound and bit him. His body instantly burned with pain, turned purple, and he collapsed dead on the spot. Pachachara endured immense pain while anxiously waiting for her husband to return, but he never came. Eventually, she gave birth to her second son. With no shelter from the relentless storm, the two children cried desperately. Their mother held them close, kneeling on the muddy ground, shielding them with her body throughout the night. She looked as if all the blood had drained from her like a withered yellow leaf. At dawn, she cradled the newborn still red like raw flesh at her side. She gave her finger to the older child and said, "Dear child, your father has left us." She walked along the path her husband had taken. When she reached the mound, she saw his body, stiff and purple. "It was all because of me," she cried. "He died miserably on this road because of me." She continued. Upon reaching the Asiravati River, she saw that the water was knee-deep or even waist-deep due to the storm that had passed the previous night. She was too weak to carry both children at once. So she left the older child on one side of the river and carried the newborn across. She laid the baby on a branch she placed on the ground and turned to retrieve the older child. As she waded back, constantly glancing back at the baby, a hawk from the sky mistook the newborn for meat and swooped down. Seeing this, she raised her arms and screamed, "No, stop, shop." She cried out 3 times, but the hawk was too far and carried the baby away into the sky. Meanwhile, the older child saw his mother standing in the middle of the river, waving her arms and yelling. He thought she was calling him and rushed into the river. He slipped and was swept away by the current. Standing helplessly in the middle of the river, she witnessed her newborn taken by a hawk, her older child drowned, and her husband died by the roadside. Wailing, weeping, she cried, "A hawk took 1 son, 1 drowned in the river. My husband lies dead on the road." And so she continued the path toward her parents' home. On her way, she met a man traveling from Savatthi. She asked, "Where are you from, sir?" "From Savatthi, madam." "In Savatthi, on such and such street, there's a merchant family. Do you know them?" "Yes, madam, I do, but please don't ask me about that family. Ask about another." "I have no interest in other families. That's the only one I want to ask about." "Madam, you've left me no choice. Do you remember last night's storm?" "Yes, I do. Perhaps I'm the one who suffered the most." "Well then, listen. That storm collapsed their house. The merchant, his wife, and their Sonyor family all perished. The neighbors are cremating them now. Look, you can still see the smoke rising." Instantly, she went mad. Her clothes fell off, but she didn't notice. Naked as the day she was born, she wandered, weeping and singing. "My 2 sons are dead. My husband lies along the road. Upon the funeral pyre, burn the bodies of my parents." People who saw her shouted, "She's mad, she's crazy." Some threw trash at her. Others dusted her with dirt. Some hurled stones. It so happened that the Buddha was residing at Jetavana Monastery. He was preaching to his disciples when he saw Patachara approaching. Recognizing her as one who had cultivated spiritual perfections over 100,000 eons, and who had made a great vow under Buddha Padumuttara, he knew her time had come. Long ago, she had seen Buddha Padumuttara declare a nun to be foremost in monastic discipline. She made the aspiration, "May I too be declared by a Buddha as the foremost in discipline among nuns." Buddha Padumuttara foresaw this would be fulfilled and predicted. In the time of Buddha Gautama, this woman will be known as Patachara and be the foremost in discipline among nuns. Seeing her, the Buddha told the assembly, None but the Tathagata can be a refuge for this woman. He allowed her to approach. The assembly cried, "Don't let this madwoman near." But the Buddha said, "Step aside, do not obstruct her." When she came near, the Buddha said gently, "Dear sister, return to yourself." At once, through the Buddha's spiritual power, her mind regained clarity. She realized she was naked and, overwhelmed with shame, crouched to the ground. A kind man threw her his cloak. She put it on, approached the Buddha, and prostrated at his golden feet. "Lord, be my refuge. One of my sons was taken by a hawk, and the other drowned. My husband died on the road. My family perished when our house collapsed in last night's storm. Their bodies are still burning." The Buddha replied, "Patachara, grieve no more. You've come to the right refuge, the right protector. Yes, everything you said is true. But in the endless cycle of rebirth, you've shed more tears over lost loved ones than the water in all four oceans." Then the Buddha recited this verse, "The tears you've shed, in lives past from sorrow and pain, are greater than the waters of all the world's oceans. So why remain heedless?" Upon hearing this, her sorrow gradually lifted. Seeing her readiness, the Buddha continued, "When death comes, neither children, parents, nor relatives can provide refuge. Knowing this, the wise purify their conduct and clear the path that leads to Nibbana." At the end of the discourse, Patachara attained the first stage of enlightenment, Sotapanna. Her defilements, like dust scattered across the earth, were burned away.